All right, boys and girls, this is Math Message 5-2, the main math lesson of the day. And today we are going to learn to represent fractions using pictures, numbers, and words. But first, let's get warmed up, have out a whiteboard or a piece of paper, and we'll get our math brains working. I'm going to flash a problem on the screen, and as soon as you see the problem, I want you to write down just the product or just the answer. Try to keep up with answering them as quickly as I am revealing them. All right, here we go. 2 times 5, 2 times 6, 2 times 7, 2 times 8. If you weren't able to keep up, pause the video, get them all answered. Now, boys and girls, you should have been able to answer these right away. All of these are times 2, and so anytime we're multiplying by 2, we take the other factor and double it. So 5 plus 5 is 10. Take the other factor and double it. 6 plus 6 is 12. Take the other factor and double it. 7 plus 7 is 14. Take the other factor and double it. 8 plus 8 is 16. All right, let's go to the next set of facts. Four times 5. 4 times 6, 4 times 7, and 4 times 8. All right, now the first one should have been very easy for you. 4 times 5, it's times 5, so I could simply count by 5s, 5, 10, 15, 20. But what do you notice about all of these problems? They are all multiplying by 4. What is one of our strategies that we could do when we're multiplying by 4? Double, double, right? Anytime I multiply by 4, I can take the other factor and double it. 6 plus 6 is 12, and then I'm going to double that factor. 12 plus 12 is 24. Okay, again, this is times 4. Take the other factor, double, double. 7 plus 7 is 14. So 14 plus 14 is 28. This is times 4, so double, double. 8 plus 8 is 16. 16 plus 16 is 32. All right, let's do the next set. 6 times 5, 6 times 6, 6 times 7, and 6 times 8. All right, if you weren't able to keep up, pause the video, get them all answered. Okay, so 6 times 5, again, I would just use my 5 times facts, and I can count by 5s, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. But notice that they are all times 6. Okay, so what strategy could we use for anything times 6? We have a few different strategies, but one of the strategies we could use is using the helper fact 5 times 6. I know that 5 times 6 is 30, so 6 times 6 would just be adding on another group of 6, right? Instead of 5 groups of 6, I have 6 groups of 6. So add on 6 more, and that would give me 36. Plus, Mrs. McMullen has a rhyme. 6 dogs with 6 sticks. 6 times 6 is 36. That's one of our squared facts that we should have memorized in our head. All right, doing 6 times 7. Again, turn that 6 times 7 into 5 times 7. We should be able to do that quickly and easily and get 35. And then just add on another group of 7. 35 plus 7 is 42. All right, 6 times 8, I could change that into 5 times 8. 5 groups of 8 would be 40. And then just add on another group of 8. So my answer would be 48. Plus, I also have rhymes for these too, 6 and 7 stuck like glue. 6 times 7 is 42. And who do we appreciate? 6 times 8 is 48. All right, so now that we have our math brains warmed up, let's go back and look at this math message again. We are going to be representing fractions using pictures, numbers, and words. I want you to look at this pink fraction circle piece. Or look at this fraction circle piece. This pink piece here, part of it is covered, but this pink piece is going to be the whole. I want you to show 1/3 of the pink piece. Now, if you were in class, I would have you with your little fraction circles, and you would cover that pink piece with that blue piece there to cover 1/3 of that. But I'm not going to have you do that right now. I just want you to look at the board, and I want you to explain to someone, or just kind of talk to yourself here if you're doing this at home, and explain how you know that it shows 1/3. Maybe pause the video and give yourself time to think. Why does this show 1/3? All right, boys and girls, if I were to cut this pink fraction piece equally, then I would have another piece here and another piece here. And what do you notice about that? It took 3 equal pieces, right, to cover that whole. Those 3 equal pieces then are called thirds. And when we're talking about just one of those equal pieces, we call it 1/3. And if I were to write this in numbers, I would write it like this. 1/3, which really means 1 out of 3 equal pieces. All right, I would really like to take some notes. Now, if you were in class with me, let's see here. Sorry about that. I'm going to kind of back up. So we're going to learn today how to properly represent fractions as pictures, numbers, and words. And I'm going to give you a chart to take some notes. Now, if you were in class, I would have this nice little chart that you would be able to take these notes on. If you're not in class with me and you're at home, just grab a piece of paper and just kind of jot down these things and take some math notes today. This is going to help you to remember these names and these representations. And for this activity, we're going to be using the red circle as the whole every single time. So as we're talking about fractions, always keep in mind that red fraction circle. That is going to be your whole. I guess I should have used red ink, shouldn't I? The red fraction circle. All right. So now, I keep hitting the wrong button to go back. Today we are specifically going to look at unit fractions. I don't know if you can actually see that word up there. So, unit fractions. What do you think the word unit fraction means? What do you think unit would mean? I want you to tear this word apart. What do you think uni means? Have you ever heard of a unicorn or a unicycle? What do you know about a unicorn and a unicycle? Uni means one, right? So when I'm talking about a unit fraction is a fraction that names one part of the whole, such as 1/6, or in the picture we had just a minute ago, 1/3. So a unit fraction is naming just one part of the whole. All right, so now let's look at the chart that I have here. And again, if you are taking your notes, here's what I want you to do. I want you to simply draw a circle, and I want you to split that circle as best you can into 2 equal parts. That way it looks just like my picture right here. All right, so now, off to the side of that, I want you to tell me how many equal parts that whole has. Okay, well, I just said we split it into 2 equal parts. And so you can just kind of off to the side in your notes. My orientation must be off on my board. I keep going the wrong way. Off to the side, you can just say 2 parts. Okay? And then I want to know what the words for those size parts would be. If I split something into 2 equal parts, do you know what I call those parts? I call them halves. We have split it in half, or halves. And so again, on your notes, you can simply just write the notes, half and halves. This is just the plural form. Halves would be plural for half. And then the words for one part of the whole. So now go ahead and shade in one part of that fraction. Do you know what we would call one part of that fraction? We would call it 1/2. And that's how we would say it as a word. So I want you to write it as words. So you're going to write 1/2. And then I want you to write what that would be called for one part of the whole. And so one part of the whole, we're going to go ahead and write this as a number, and that is 1/2, or 1 out of 2 pieces. All right, so boys and girls, that is what you're going to do. Since you don't have this chart at home, you can just draw the fraction circle, and then off to the side, you can just write all of the notes that I'm writing on my chart, okay? All right, so now, if I have a circle that's cut into 3 equal parts, now I'm going to give you a little tip for dividing a circle into 3 equal parts. Put a dot right there in the middle of the circle. Go ahead and draw a line straight down to that dot, and then draw 2 lines kind of off to the side, not straight out to the side. You don't want them to look like that. That's not equal. But then you also don't want to put them too close together. I kind of picture it like my legs kind of nice and spread out. And that's going to help you make 3 equal parts. All right, so now you just drew a circle with 3 equal parts. So I want you to write 3 parts, or write 3 equal parts, right? All right, and then the words for those parts. If I break something into 3 equal parts, do you know what those parts are called? They're called thirds. So third or thirds would be the plural. Now, what would I call just one of those parts? Words for one part of the whole would be 1/3. And the way I would write that as a number is 1 out of 3. And again, this bar, we could say the words out of when we see that bar. So 1 out of 3 would name my unit fraction. If I'm going too fast as you're doing your notes, you can always pause that video. All right, the next circle that you're going to draw it broken into 4 equal parts. So we have 4 equal parts. Now, if you break something into 4 equal parts, what do you call those parts? You call them fourths, or just the singular fourth, like if I want to say 1/4. Okay, so now, what do I call just one out of those 4 parts? I would call that 1/4. This is how I say it as a word. Writing it as a number, I write it 1 out of 4. All right, so now this one here, Let's look at how many equal parts it has. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 equal parts. So I'm going to give you a little tip on how to draw that circle. When I draw 6, I like to start with my thirds. So I just do just like I do with my thirds. And then I take each of those thirds and divide them in half. And that will make 6 parts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So draw a circle, divide it into 6 parts as equally as you can. And when you have parts, have something broken into 6 equal parts, we call that a sixth or sixth or sixth. It's hard to say. Now, if I'm just talking about the unit fraction or one of those pieces, I call that 1/6. And when I write it as a number, I write it 1 out of 6, or 1/6. All right, and finally, your last fraction circle. Again, if I'm going too fast, pause the video, give yourself time to get those notes written. This time you're going to divide a circle into 8 equal parts. I like to divide it first in half, then in half again, and then I like to divide each of those halves, or each of those fourths actually, in half. Okay, so again, you're going to make a circle. I like to put a dot in the middle so my cuts always go through that. Cut that piece in half, cut each of those pieces in half, and then cut each of those pieces in half. And there you will have your piece cut into 8 equal parts. All right, so that's 8 equal parts. What would we call it if it's 8 equal parts, do you think? We call it an eighth. E-I-G-H-T-H. And then if I want to make that plural, I just add an S onto it. Eighths. Now, if I'm going to talk about just one out of those 8 pieces, I call it 1/8. Oops, I spelled that one wrong. I was looking at it, I was like, that doesn't look right. E-I-G-H-T-H. There we go. 1/8. And if I write that as a number, 1 out of 8. Or 1/8. All right, boys and girls, it's going to be important that you kind of take these notes. That way you're getting used to the spelling of it, you're getting used to how you say it in words, and you're getting used to what that looks like as a number. Now, I would like for you, let me get past some of these pages that I used. Oh, I want to do a few more vocabulary words before we move on, okay? A few more vocabulary words, and you can even take these notes on your paper as well. All right, in a fraction, you notice that I had a top number and a bottom number. So you would see me like write 1/2, or maybe I wrote 1/3, or maybe I wrote 1/4. There are special names for those parts. The top number is called the numerator, okay? And the bottom number is called the denominator. So I need you to go ahead and write a big old fraction bar on your paper and write the word numerator and denominator. Pause the video if you need to. Now, what that numerator stands for, if I'm looking at fractions on a piece of paper, that numerator is usually that shaded part. It's the part that I'm talking about. It might be the part of the pizza that I'm eating. It might be the part of the cookie that I get to keep. It might be the part of the pie that is already taken out. So it's the shaded part, or it's the part that we are talking about. Now that bottom number is called the denominator, and that would be the total parts. Okay, so let's go back to that one chart that I had. All right, so my top number was my numerator. That was the part I had shaded in. I had one piece shaded in. The bottom number is the denominator. out of two total pieces. Okay, looking at this fraction, the numerator, I have one piece shaded in, but there are 3 pieces total. Don't get that mixed up. Some people think that the bottom number are the pieces not shaded in, but that bottom number is the total pieces shaded in. All right, so let's explore some more. You are going to need your workbook on page 154. So if you need to pause the video for a minute to gather that up. And you are going to fill in a chart of your own here. Now this one's a little bit different. It's not just dealing with unit fractions, but let's look at the first one. The picture says the whole is the pink piece. So even underneath of these blue pieces here, there's a one pink piece. Now notice that it's covered with 2 blue pieces. Now boys and girls, how many pieces would it take to cover the whole thing? Well, it would take 1, 2, 3 pieces to cover the whole thing. So this is actually cut into thirds. Now, how many pieces do we have shaded in, or how many pieces are covering it? 2/3. See how we have 2 out of 3 pieces. And then they have it written in a number like this. You've got 1/3 plus another 1/3 equals 2/3. So you can kind of use this top example to help you do the rest of these. Go ahead and pause the video, try these on your own, and then we'll go over them together.